I'm currently riding the most popular form of public transport in all of Manila. This is a jeepney. And it's honestly kind of crazy. It sort of acts like a bus, but it used to be, as you can see, an old US Army Jeep. These things are everywhere. In fact, 40% of all motorized trips in the city are done with these things. Well, at least for now. The weirdest part is that Manila already had a functional public transport system before these took over, and a great one at that. So how is it that leftover American war vehicles ended up replacing it? And why is it that the government is now trying to push so many of these off the roads? My name is Evan Edinger, and today I'm traveling around the densest city in the world to find out how the city rebuilt itself around the wrong vehicle and why what saved Manila's public transport might be the very same thing that's holding it back.
So what are these, and how exactly do they work? Well, this is a jeepney. Manila currently has about 55,000 individually owned jeepneys that carry people all around the city. Think of it like a unique looking bus with a funky coat of paint. Don't worry about looking for a specific bus stop to get one though. You merely stand out on the side of the road where a jeepney would frequent and hail it and hop on.
If you're in the stop, you can actually hop on any jeep.
Oh, okay. Oh, do you want that one?
It's up to you.
I'll hail the next one.
Okay.
So it is just like a cab and a bus combined.
Yes. So it'll be a little tight.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. That's a very fancy one.
Once you get on, simply find your seat amongst the other riders
Oh, sorry.
and relax within the limited headroom. You don't even have to worry about paying the driver immediately.
Yeah, you can pay anytime you want.
Wow, that's so cool.
Once you're ready, either bang a coin on the ceiling to signal you'd like to pay,
Oh, I heard you take a coin and bang on this, right?
Yeah, that works too.
or use the Filipino word for payment, bayab. Just tell the driver where you're planning on getting off and then hand the payment to a nearby passenger who passes down the line until it gets to the driver.
Bayab? SM Marikino?
The cost of my 5-kilometer journey today from Cubao to Santalan, Annapolis is 15 Filipino pesos, which works out to be roughly the same as a US quarter or a UK 20 pence coin.
What are the words you think?
End of the line.
Oh, okay.
As you get closer to your final destination, you might be thinking of which bus stop you should get off at to minimize your walking distance, but with a jeepney, you can decide to get off whenever you want. All you need to do is shout "para po," which means "stop, please." And if you're wondering, yes, "para" comes from the Spanish word to stop.
Para po?
The jeepney driver will find a suitable place to pull over, and you can get off wherever you'd like.
Wow. Whew.
For me, that was the side of this major motorway, right next to this staircase, which led me to the nearest LRT station to take my train back to my hotel.
That makes sense.
As a side note, the LRT line is actually quite nice here. And there's no Google Maps to help you out here. Finding out which route each jeepney takes is usually done by asking the driver, looking on the side of the jeepney to see the beginning and end of the route written somewhere on the vehicle itself, or more commonly, just be along one of the many jeepney routes and have a driver slow down and shout at you to tell you where he's going. And if you need to go that direction, well, you just hop on board. But the main way of knowing the route to the jeepneys is pretty much from experience, and that's why a lot of this feels just a bit improvised. But the strange thing is, these routes are not as random as they seem, and in fact, many of the most popular routes seem to remember a city that existed long before the jeepneys. In the 19th century, when the Philippines was still controlled by Spain, they developed a streetcar system called tranvia. At first, it was just horse-drawn omnibuses that carried passengers throughout the city, but it slowly developed. And by slowly, I mean very slowly. The issue is, Philippine development was really slow because any decisions had to go through the long communication line all the way back to Madrid. That and a whole lot of colonial corruption. In fact, a Filipino author at the time, Jose Rizal, wrote 2 novels that clearly showed the issues with the colonial system. However, his writing was deemed too powerful by those in Spain, and so he was executed here in Manila.
Soon after, Rizal became a martyr and represented the freedom that all the Filipinos wanted, and so by 1898, Filipinos declared independence from Spain. Maybe now they could finally develop that tranvia system without all the corruption and long communication lines. Sadly though, within the same year that the Philippines declared independence from Spain, another contender entered the ring. In fact, it was a country that had previously thrown off the shackles of its colonizer and decided, well, now it'd be fun to be a colonizer ourselves. That's right, the United States of America had just won a war against Spain, and under the Treaty of Paris, the United States was now in control of the Philippines, according to what they say on paper. So, the US dropped off some troops in the Philippines, fought off those fighting for freedom and independence for their own countrymen, and sadly, the Philippines became a colony once more. But now that the Philippines was a US colony, it meant US businesses could get involved. There's a lot of money to be made. And so in 1903, a New Jersey-based business calling itself the Manila Electric Rail and Light Company opened up shop in Manila, calling itself Meralco. To this day, Meralco is still in charge of the entire country's electrical grid. Over the years, though, Meralco invested heavily into the public transport network of Manila, expanding its LRT rail, its commuter lines into the city, and more. The electric tram network, known as Tranvia, was now known as the Pearl of the Orient. But then, well, World War II kind of happened. World War II was incredibly brutal for Manila. In fact, when the US and Japan were at war fighting over this small little plot of land, most of Manila was destroyed. General Dwight D. Eisenhower remarked that Manila was the second most destroyed city in World War II, after Warsaw. The destruction here was immense. Most of the old Tranvia lines had been completely decimated, and Meralco focused more on getting electricity back into people's homes rather than on public transport, which does make a lot of sense. However, despite the massive destruction of the once great public transport network, after the war, there did seem to be a very large surplus of a particular thing throughout the city. That's right, these guys. The US Army found the cost of transporting all of their Army Jeeps back out of the country far too costly, so just decided to leave them here. But the Filipinos are quite a resourceful people, and as they say, when life gives you war Jeeps, you make public transit. People started driving the Jeeps up and down the old Tranvia lines, picking up and dropping off customers as they went, and thus the current jeepney system was born. As a way to stand out from the many other jeepneys offering their services in the city, many drivers would paint their vehicles with elaborate designs, or better yet, they'd hire an artist. In fact, entire industries emerged of talented Filipino artists offering their services to paint jeepneys. Over time, the colorful and vibrant jeepney became a symbol of the city and its resilience. And you definitely need resilience to get by in this city. You know how Americans like to bully Los Angeles for having the worst traffic in the country? Well, according to the 2025 TomTom Traffic Index, Los Angeles drivers wasted 83 hours in rush hour traffic in 2025. That's over 3 full days of a driver's life just sitting in traffic. However, Manila hears that information and they go, hold my hullo. The same index, the same year, drivers here wasted 143 hours. That is nearly 6 full days just sitting in the traffic here. This is why a better public transport solution than the jeepney that shares the same crowded roads with cars is desperately needed here. But this is also why a lot of people are very upset that before the government could implement a solution, they've already passed a law with one condition that sounds good on paper, but in practice is literally getting jeepney drivers off the roads before a replacement is found. And also, this is a lot of people's livelihoods. You can't just go, oh yeah, goodbye, we'll just pass this neat little law. There needs to be a better system. After taking just one jeepney journey through the city, I can kind of understand where the government's coming from with trying to modernize them. The thing is, these are so incredibly old at this point that the safety features are lacking, the carbon emissions from the old diesel engines are pretty brutal, and there are just so many more efficient methods of getting people around the city. Most become completely overflowing and packed with customers during peak times, and they're really not the safest things out there.
And you can easily tell here, but one common problem if you're even slightly taller than average, they can feel a little bit cramped.
Sorry. An experience.
And to make matters worse, Trump's war with Iran to distract from the Epstein files has caused the price of fuel to skyrocket here, which is threatening the livelihood of the remaining jeepney drivers, who would rather stomach that cost than pass it on to their loyal passengers. The Philippine government have been trying to phase out and/or modernize the jeepney since about 2017, but the pushback has been immense, mostly because of the cost and who's expected to front it. To get an aging old jeepney that's traditional secondhand usually runs you about 150 to 250,000 pesos. That's about 3,000 pounds. However, the cost of a more modernized jeepney, one with all the bells and whistles, air conditioning, and electric motor that the government is promoting, well, they'll run you over 2 million pesos, so over 10 times more. This is why people are so upset. The government have encouraged jeepney drivers to join cooperatives or corporations as a way to make modernizing their jeepneys a bit more financially viable, but to encourage them, they simply made the act of driving a jeepney without a cooperative colorum, or illegal. Fun word fact, the word colorum means any vehicle transporting passengers for a fee without a valid franchise. The word derives from the Latin per omnia saecula saeculorum, meaning forever and ever, from Latin Mass. The word originally was used to designate unauthorized religious cults, but has since migrated to meaning unauthorized vehicles. The more you know. The government have also offered some financial assistance to jeepney drivers to help them to modernize their vehicles, but many are arguing that this is a way of eradicating the individual driver and that one day soon, all these jeepneys will just be driven by corporations. The military are here. Now, I will say, in terms of having a functional public transport system, it does sort of make sense to have fewer people in control of it. Think about it in terms of if every single street in your city was controlled by a different person or a different business, well, every road would have its own laws and its own fees and its states of disrepair. It would be chaos, and that's why roads are part of public infrastructure. Public transport also is just more efficient when controlled by one entity, ideally the state. The state can just decide how to improve everything and be able to move it all at once. That's why the cycling network in London is still not the greatest, because London has to constantly quabble with the different counties that are like, actually, we don't want that system, so you can't have a connected network. Whereas when it comes to the rail system in London, it is so much better because it's all governed by Transport for London, one entity. Manila has been building out its rail lines to the city to give its citizens more viable alternatives to driving and the jeepney. But the city is so incredibly dense that none of these efforts have made any dents in the problem. If you look at this map of the rail solutions in Metro Manila, you can clearly see the issue. There's just not anywhere near enough. But the good news is, that's not a forever issue. Manila used to be known as the Pearl of the Orient. A city with world-class transit built that reputation with the Tranvia, and a city with world-class transit can help build it back. Manila's first ever underground subway is currently under construction, and though only 26% is complete, it's said to be opening at the earliest in 2030, so Manilans will need to be patient once more. To make matters even better, Manila is also working with JICA, Japan's international cooperation agency, who have developed a 30-year master plan to build out the entire network that is being compared to Tokyo and Seoul, which is really great news and shows how ambitious this project is. But the thing is, ambition is just what a city like this needs. We might have a more modern Manila in the coming decade, where the cultural icon that is the jeepney isn't something people have to take, but something people get to take, because there are so many more options, thus taking more cars off the road and providing more space on the road for more modernized jeepneys and maybe bicycle lanes and whatever else comes next. And hopefully the government works with some of the local Filipino artists to make their modernized jeepneys more traditional in that way. Give these artists the canvas that they deserve and make these modernized jeepneys feel traditional once more, so that it's not just like every other transport solution in every other country. And so what used to be an American vehicle of war can now be used to fight the war on traffic as opposed to being part of it. Honestly, it's been really fun exploring the city of Manila. It is so hot, so moist, so huge, so dense, but it has been absolutely lovely. I do think the jeepney is a fascinating bit of culture that really should stay, at least in some form. My only hope that is in the future, after Manila builds out its public transport network, they keep the jeepney and they actually paint the newer ones and they keep it as a cultural icon that still carries people around the city, just actually modernized and kept to society's cultural standards. Other than that, if you're interested in finding out why this one city tears down its own bridge each and every year, I will link that video above. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday. Goodbye.